handling enemy attacks. When experiencing personal attacks, we are to trust God, not allowing fear to cloud our perceptions. Here now is Gene Getz.
It's a lot easier to talk about this principle. It's another thing to practice it. To actually practice this in our own lives. And again, Nehemiah gives us a wonderful illustration. Fear undermines our ability to trust God. And I'm sure that Nehemiah was tempted to fear because he faced enemy attacks. But in spite of that, he trusted God. He was a great example to us. Now, in the opening part of chapter 6, Nehemiah describes a number of subtle personal attacks. They're incredible. And each was designed to destroy him. Let's take a look. Here's the first attack. When Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall and that no gap was left in it, though at that time I had not installed the doors in the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent me a message. Come, let's meet together in the villages of the Ono Valley. And if you look where the Ono Valley is in Israel, even today, it's about 30 or 40 miles from Jerusalem. I mean, they're asking Nehemiah to leave the setting in spite of everything that's going on and all of the attacks he's already experienced, come out of Jerusalem, get him away that far, and basically what they're saying is, let's meet together. Well, Nehemiah was wise enough to know that something is really wrong. And his conclusion was, but they were planning to harm me. They were planning to harm me. So I sent messengers to them saying, I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? And the interesting thing there is he didn't say you're lying. He didn't say you're trying to deceive me. You're trying to take my life. He just simply said, what do you expect? I've got a great work here. I'm not leaving. Well, they weren't satisfied with that. As you continue to unfold the story here, you have what I've called an expanded attack. Now notice it says, Sanballat sent me this same message a fifth time by his aid. 5 times. He sends a very same message. Come and meet with us. In essence, let's solve this thing amicably. Well, with this, he had an open letter. Notice what it says, because now, after the 5th time, Nehemiah said, I'm not coming down. Notice what Sanballat did. Sanballat sent me the same message a 5th time by his aide, who had an open letter in his hand. Now, I was expanding this because now Sanballat is getting really mean. In it was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem agrees that you and the Jews plan to rebel. And basically, you'll see here, he's simply saying, there's a rumor out there, and we want to help you. We want to protect you. You see that unfold in the rest of the text. And he goes on to say in this letter, this is the reason you are building the wall. They're saying, you're trying to rebel. According to these reports, you are to become their king, and have even set up the prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim on your behalf, there's a king in Judah. These rumors, they said in this letter, will be heard by the king. So come, let's confer together. In other words, we want to deal with these rumors. We know these rumors are not true, but we want to help you resolve these problems. That's about as sneaky as you can get. Manipulative. Well, what happened? Well, notice Nehemiah's response. Then I replied to him, there's nothing to these rumors you are spreading. Now he gets very specific. You're spreading these rumors. You are inventing them in your own mind. In other words, at this point in time, Nehemiah got very direct. He understood what is happening here. Well, this was the second attack, but there's a third one coming. And we read about this in Nehemiah 6:10. I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, son of Mehetabel, who was restricted to his house. And he said, let us meet at the house of God inside the temple. Let us shut the temple doors because they're coming to kill you. They're coming to kill you tonight. Well, Nehemiah saw through that one as well. And so you'll notice his response. But I said, should a man like me run away? Who do you think you're trying to fool here? How can I enter the temple and live? In other words, haven't you been watching what I've been doing? At this state, you expect me to run and hide? I mean, this was ridiculous. But they were trying to deceive him. He said, I will not go. And then, here's the interpretation. I realized that God had not sent him. He saw through the whole trickery of this situation. Because of the prophecy, he says, he spoke against me. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't align with reality. Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. And so Nehemiah was able to see through these attacks and to trust God and not to allow fear to intimidate him. And here's the amazing thing. We see the wall completed. The wall was completed in 52 days on the 25th day of the month Elul. When all our enemies heard this, all the surrounding nations were intimidated and lost their confidence, for they realized that this task had been accomplished by our God. And the interesting thing about this statement is the very thing that they were trying to do to Nehemiah to intimidate him, reversed. They were intimidated. His enemies were intimidated. They lost their confidence. And the amazing thing is they realized that God did this. God was the one that helped complete that task. And as I was reflecting on this, I couldn't help but think of the Apostle Paul. Because the Apostle Paul faced his own Sanballats, his own Tobiahs in the New Testament world. One of them was called Alexander, the coppersmith. And notice what he wrote to Timothy. This is right at the end of his life. Paul knows he's going to die. He's going to be killed. He's going to be martyred. This is the last letter he ever wrote while he was on this earth. And he wrote it to Timothy. He said, Alexander the coppersmith did great harm to me. The Lord will repay him according to his works. But here's the warning. Watch out for him yourself because he strongly opposed our words. So you see, the Apostle Paul faced some of these incredible attacks, personal attacks. And you know, it's simply true, I think, for us today that we need to trust God, but we got to watch out for the Sanballats in this world. And the Tobiahs, they're out there. The Alexanders, there are people out there that really want to harm us. They're selfish, and this can happen even in the ministry today. And so here's the question, reflection, response question. In what specific ways does Satan use people to attempt to intimidate and discourage believers who are carrying out their Great Commission? I haven't met too many of these people. Thank God. But there are evil people in this world, just like these biblical personalities. And fortunately, in our culture, we don't face that kind of hostile persecution. Some Christians face it a lot. They're deceivers. They're out to destroy. But there are Sanballats today. I've faced a few of them. Thank God, not many of them. I've faced enemy attacks in the ministry. And it's not fun. It's really difficult. And the challenge is, are we really going to practice this principle of trusting God and not allowing fear to take over and grip our souls? because that's exactly what Satan wants to happen. That's exactly what evil people want to see happen. They'll use fear, they'll use intimidation, and we've got to look to the Lord and trust Him. But the fact of the matter is, most attacks today are more subtle, far more subtle. And one of the most subtle things are rumors and gossip. And that can be absolutely devastating because, a lot of people just like rumors. In fact, they like to pass on information to other people. Sometimes they do that sincerely. Other times they just like to pass on something bad about somebody. Somehow they get some kind of secret enjoyment out of passing on rumors about other people. I don't know whether it makes them feel good. I don't know what their motives are totally, but somehow they enjoy that. In fact, I remember one man coming to me who later, by the way, ended up in a horrible situation himself when I was being attacked, and he said to me, point blank, Gene, I just really enjoyed seeing how you handled that attack. It was almost like I enjoyed seeing you go through the problem. Now, he was kind of giving me a backhanded compliment because he was saying, you handled it fairly well. But I knew enough about him to know that he kind of enjoyed the experience seeing me attacked. Isn't that sad? But that happens today, and we have to be extremely careful in our own lives. In fact, this principle became a reality in my own life because I heard some information about a well-known Christian leader. And I had heard rumors about that person and some of the things that he had done and said. And I could think about those things, and I heard this rumor or this statement, and it was very easy for me to start filling in gaps and say, yeah, I heard this, I heard this, I heard that. Well, the fact of the matter is, when I looked at the whole picture, when I interacted with a person personally, it wasn't true. Part of it was true in the sense of some things that were perhaps a little bit unfortunate, but we were filling in gaps. People were filling in gaps that were absolutely not true. I know how easy that is. So I think we all have to be very, very careful about that. You've heard me use the illustration of the railroad tracks. The little boy that's out with his daddy looking down the railroad tracks. And as he looks down the railroad tracks, he says, Daddy, those tracks come together. And Daddy says, no, they don't come together. You just think they come together. He said, Daddy, they come together. No, they don't come together. And so the little boy goes home and he says, Mommy, Daddy's a liar. Daddy is a liar because I saw the tracks come together and he said they didn't come together. Well, what was the problem? Lack of perspective. And so many times we see the tracks coming together. They're not coming together. We just don't have the big picture. And so there's a great lesson I think we can learn here from this particular event right here in Nehemiah's life. So here's the principle. Let me restate it. When experiencing personal attacks, we're to trust God, not allowing fear to cloud our perceptions. But let's make sure our perceptions are accurate.